agriculture. Buhari urges Nigerian youth to maximize opportunities in agriculture. My friend, what did you think of his latest comments? He says, I think he said agriculture is the bedrock of the economy. Is that actually, is that true?
I heard that this morning and I was confused.
Yeah.
Because I don't think agriculture is the bedrock of the economy now, and it still has a long way to go with consistent practical policies that need to be put in place. Then we can now go and say, okay, soon enough we'll see that, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. But for now, I don't think we're ready for any kind of external.
Hey, Lagos, does anybody out there think?
Crisis.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe he was talking futuristically now. He wants it to be. It's wishful. It's wishful.
I see. Well, if anybody out there thinks agriculture is the bedrock of the economy, do send in a message. I just want to get your thoughts also on the president's comments. Now we move on to PMI for April from the central bank. What are you seeing here? 56.9 for the month of April. Yeah.
For those who do not understand,
yes, let's help them. What's PMI stand for? What is it?
PMI,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so basically PMI is Purchasing Managers Index. It's basically a survey that takes responses from both manufacturing and non-manufacturing purchasing managers, basically about level of business activities. So there are sub indices that are used to calculate the broader purchasing managers index, whether it's the manufacturing and the non-manufacturing. So for the manufacturing PMI, we saw a rise of 6.9 points, and that basically means that there was an expansion in that particular sector. So when you have points above 50, it means an expansion. When you have points at 50, it means unchanged, and then below 50, it's a contraction. So basically what this means is that there's an expansion in that particular sector. And when we look at all the other sub indices that make up the manufacturing PMI, like production level, employment level, the level of new orders, supplier delivery time, so that there was a broad-based expansion across those sub indices. So that's actually a good indication of what the manufacturing sector will probably do in Q1 2018. If you look at the non-manufacturing PMI as well, there was also an expansion. It was about 57.4 points, and basically that means there was an expansion as well. So if you look at all the other sub indices, there was broad-based. So if you're talking about the level of new orders as well as business activity in those in those sectors. So for us, what we believe is the foreign exchange stability that we have seen from Q2 2017, where we had the introduction of the INE window, and the relative stability in that particular foreign exchange market has actually helped the manufacturers to get their inputs from because usually most of the inputs are imported, so they're able to get their inputs, which has kind of caused like stability in that particular sector. But we believe going forward that a lot of backward integration needs to be done, to look for more local content, to replace local content with imported raw materials.
Basically. Okay, so I do want people to take note of this though. Whenever we come up with the PMI figures, this is still, for our listeners, this is still anchored on, as just said, foreign exchange liquidity, and of course I think oil prices do have to kind of play a role in this.
Exactly.
So those two remain the pillars, perhaps the bedrock that President Buhari was talking about.
Very quickly, a message is in from Benga Kamu up on WhatsApp. He says, why are we diversifying if agriculture is the bedrock of the economy? How much does agriculture contribute to the GDP? Mr. President needs a reality check.
Benga, our consistent listener, thank you so much for that.
But Yinka sent in this other message saying, Nigerians are so insatiable. When we are jubilating on our recent outing where Daddy did not enter the youth this time around, when we heard of the bedrock of the economy statement, we all agreed to allow it because it wasn't too bad compared to saying that they want to shut down the oil sector.
Yinka, that's a good point.
Technology, and all the other sectors need to grow concurrently as well.
That's the thing. But just to make a quick point of the comment you made of diversification, so it's not that it's not diverse, it is, but there needs to be more done in all these different sectors.
Right, as far as income.
Well, looking at the results, we see that year on year it was up 64%, but if you break it down to quarter on quarter, we saw there was it wasn't as high as 64%. But however, when we looked at all the line items, we noticed that FCMB was still enjoying interest income from government securities, and that's
we explained that interest income from government securities, that's T-bills, Abi?
Yes.
Yes.
But basically, when I looked at the proportion of what their loans and advances and government securities, loan interest from loans and advances still take a major point. But when we talked about increase in the quarter and year on year, we had more from government securities. Yeah.
Okay. And then I showed that there was where is this one-off charge here? I get the IFRS 9 provisions. It cost them about 15.2 billion that they had to take, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. So I think the IFRS 9 provision basically is how do you recognize financial instruments?
Okay.
So it's more like sometimes there's some financial instruments that have to be classified as equity instruments and some as liabilities, and then some instruments might be a hybrid.
Okay.
So some part or component of it goes into your equity charge, some goes into your liability. But from what I saw, I think they had 15 billion take from their retained earnings.
So, but it's more. I think it's more strict now the way the IFRS 9 provision, yeah, because they're just trying to make sure that it's more okay. As far as how the provisions are taken. Okay. So and you guys cover FCMB. Is you have a recommendation on the stock or? Yeah.
To us, FCMB is still largely undervalued.
Okay.
And I think right now it's trading at a price book value of 0.3 times, which is lower than the industry average of about 0.9.
Okay. So still a buy, yeah?
All right. Still a buy for us.
Cool. And remember, guys, always talk to a broker like an Afri Invest before
to answer all your questions.
You see, they're ready to answer all your questions.
Very important. Speaking of questions, Prince has a question up on WhatsApp. He says, if not agriculture, then what is supposed to be our bedrock? Any alternative?
Prince. It is oil, though. It's crude oil and FX oil. Well, actually, crude oil, basically.
That's the current reality.
That is it, man. That is it.
Well, Ajay sent this message saying your program should be called the PMB bashing program.
It's not, that didn't come from me.
I look over my shoulder.
We're just reading your messages. I talked to Benga and Yinka. All right, real quick. Okay, we still get a little more time. Let's move on to taxes with regards to so Mr. Fowler, Mr. Tunde Fowler, the chairman of the Joint Tax Board and Federal Inland Revenue Service, has said that states should give tax agencies more autonomy. I think it was in Kwara State when he said this, and he was addressing the governor of Kwara State, saying that he should tell his colleagues that they need to give states tax agencies more autonomy. I mean, I suppose that's yes. So they're supposed to be doing that, yeah.
Well, if you do like a brief analysis of giving states tax autonomy, first of all, we'll say what is the case for even actually saying why we should give state tax agencies autonomy. So the first thing is budget constraints. So once it's under the government, that means it's prone to fixed budgets, and then if they have to be flexible, it's practically sometimes impossible when you're trying to make we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to be flexible with this. It's practically impossible because of the bureaucracies. And then we have corruption and a few other things that can make a case that can make the case for an autonomy. But then if we look at the advantages, what are the advantages of giving them an autonomy? First of all, basically, is they're flexible. They're able to introduce more technological systems and processes, into getting taxed and getting taxed and more revenue. And I think what's more important is it allows them to use the principles of the private sector in order to drive efficiency.
Okay.
In getting taxed. So those are the advantages, of allowing them to have autonomy. But if you look at, on the other hand, the downside is corruption. Then there could be cases of corruption, and if they're not transparent and they're not accountable, then you now start having cases of things going right, all of these things. So I think what we would advise is somewhat of like a semi-autonomous kind of system where there's a clearly defined relationship with the tax autonomy. They're autonomous all up to a point, and then there's a clearly defined relationship between the tax body and the government, and then there's regulation to ensure that there's transparency and then public accountability. Basically, if you look at the Kwara State example, I think in 2016 they had about 7.1 billion in tax revenue, and then they did, I think, about 17 billion in 2017. So if other states look at that particular model and they can ask themselves, how is this working? and then how can we replicate this in our own state, with particular.
Solid stuff, Efe. Thank you so much.
Fantastic stuff. A quick message in from Henry Manuel for us to round up. He says, because of the noise about the government support in the agri sector, my mother decided to invest in agriculture. She bought 30 hectares of land in Ogun State, but the procedure to get the C of O took 18 months. Getting the equipment to clear the land took 6 months, and she was told that it could have been longer had she not used a consultant. The sector needs patient capital, and there is not a lot of it out there. While Prince comes back to say, Rotus, I will remind you of oil as bedrock in the near future. Sounds like a threat. While Amaka says, by tax agents, does he mean the alpha beta of Lagos? Shaking my head.
Amaka.
Shots fired. And Bash, no, we don't have a name. Sam says, please guys do checks. If contribution to GDP is the definition of bedrock, then it's agriculture 26%, not oil below 10%. Bash objectively says
income. What income? Where does government get majority of their income from?
Exactly,
Sam, it is crude oil. That is the bedrock of our economy. If crude oil goes south, everything goes south.
We are out of time, so unfortunately we cannot continue this debate.
If we are bringing you back next week, if it's coming back next week.
And I like that he did take it down to definitions, which is always important. But we have to go. Thank you very much, Efe, for coming through. It's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you.
Rotus, as usual, I'll catch you tomorrow morning again, bright and early for this. Lagos Stay With Us is coming up. It's Frankly Speaking with Muyiwa Afolabi, and then at 7:30, detailed newspaper analysis inside of Freshly Pressed.
We're still streaming on YouTube. So what were you gonna say?
This federal government people actually deceived us for a long time.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, agriculture was kiliko to the GDP, and they're not getting like 80% of their revenue is coming from the oil sector.
Right.
So basically, if anything.
So you're not looking at it from the GDP perspective.
No,
you're looking at it from the income.
Money. How much money is government bringing in? That's what it's done. It's oil. It's oil.
There you go. That's the clarification.
Bye, guys.